Episode 34, SpaceX catches a rocket. I actually didn't know about that until you shared it with me, and I was like, oh, wow, that's super cool. Also, big news in the tech world. Well, I'm not saying big news, but the layoffs continue in big tech with an interesting twist this time around. Involves Grubhub. So, interesting. Netflix. I didn't think it was that great, but all-time highs. Power makes me kind of sad, teary-eyed. As I was looking at call options. These are topics.
Actually, a busy week for a lot of news stories happenings and a lot to talk about, but we picked the best ones. You said you didn't know about the SpaceX thing until I texted you. But it was funny because after I texted you, it just went everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Then I started seeing all these TikToks and it was like, oh, it's landing. It was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And SpaceX launched their Starship rocket. And the big accomplishment that they did was they caught the rocket booster back at the launch pad. Whenever I think about it, it's just another massive accomplishment for SpaceX. Traditionally, as you know, when rockets launch into space, they're propelled by a rocket booster. And so it's it's a tube that accounts for probably 80% of the thing that you see launching from the launch pad. That's the rocket booster. That's what actually gives it all the propulsion that's needed to get into space. But once the rocket gets to a certain point in this Earth's atmosphere, you'll always see the booster separate. Anytime you watch a rocket launch, there's always a booster that separates from the actual spaceship. And that's the rocket booster. Traditionally, those things fall into the ocean. And then NASA, for example, has to go retrieve it. And so that takes time. That costs a lot of money. And I think in the past also, these things weren't reusable. And so SpaceX's whole thesis around reusable rockets has been really coming to life. So for this time around, when the rocket booster separated from Starship, it fell from the Earth. And instead of falling in the ocean, it actually guided itself back to the launch pad. And so you'll see it fall, and then you'll see little, I don't know what they're called, but they're little boosters on the side. When you see those puffs of air come out, those are boosters that are kind of moving the part into
Stabilizers.
Yeah. They're little boosters that are stabilizing the rocket so that it gets to where it needs to go. And then at some point you see the rocket fire again. So this huge fire comes from the bottom of it and it slows down. And once it does that, it uses stabilizers and boosters to then guide itself back to the launch pad. And once it gets there, it slows down. And there are these two, what they've been calling chopsticks for some reason. These two chopsticks, once the booster gets in there, they close in and the rocket turns off. And now this opens up a whole new world of efficiency for space launches, because now that rocket booster's there, you don't have to spend money for people to retrieve it, and it's ready to go for the next launch. And what I've heard is that the whole goal is to be able to catch this booster, refuel it, and then launch another spaceship or whatever they need to launch within an hour. Mm-hmm. That's the goal that they're going for.
Yeah.
Whereas traditionally rocket launches would take months to actually reset and launch again.
Yeah.
So massive accomplishment for SpaceX. Elon Musk does it again, despite, his political views that not everyone is aligned with. He's as we always been talking about Elon on this show, he's got the magic sauce that is needed to execute on things. Now, it's not all Elon. We can't give all credit to Elon, because he has lots and lots of smart people working for him and around him, but he is at the center of it, and he is the person that guides and pushes these people along. What are your thoughts on it?
No, I mean, it's really cool. It's a pretty significant milestone, right? Because as you said, typically these boosters are just dropped into the ocean. and some boat has to go find it and pick it up. I think the feat of it actually pinpointing its landing like in between their chopsticks, misappropriating
Ooh, that's a
things
good
from
one too.
culture.
We got time to talk about that one.
Dude, there's like this boba thing blew up on TikTok with his senior lure. Did you see that one? Yeah. But anyways, not the sidetrack. But no, it's pretty cool. Now, whether it's necessary to be able to relaunch within an hour, I don't know about this part, but yeah, I mean, again, Elon, he does have the vision, but I will have to say, like, the team has done something pretty amazing, right? Elon is not an aerospace engineer, so, again, I'll give him credit for their vision, the actual work. Those guys are doing pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, I saw somebody, I think I told you, there's a SpaceX office here. So I randomly see SpaceX people walking around because they're wearing a shirt or a hoodie.
Yeah.
Or the one that I said, they had the emblem on their car.
Yeah.
On their Tesla.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw over the weekend was Elon posted something on his X around live streaming Diablo. He was like playing Diablo with a friend and defeating this boss.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pretty high level. So that means Elon's pretty high level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where do you find the time? You play video games with everything else you're doing.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know, man. It's one of those things. It's like these types of people who, even like, Tim Cook is an example. I think Tim Cook, if you read into like how these successful people manage their time, I think Tim Cook wakes up at like 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
And so he probably gets like 5 hours, 4 hours of sleep a day.
Yep. Well, I mean, I've read that. I see a lot of articles about like how these like top executives, etc., spend their time. And it was some of them only sleep like 4 hours, but I was like looking into it, and it's some humans are actually able to function with like very minimal sleep.
Yeah.
But like
It's like
Sundar,
physiology,
for
right?
example, sleeps like 8 hours, right? And so it's not everybody, but some people definitely operate on little sleep, and that's how they kind of like are able to pack in more stuff.
Yeah, I've read that too, where it's like physiology of the body or genetics or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Couldn't do it. Like literally their entire day is packed with something. I have a lot of downtime in my day.
Yeah.
Whether it's lunch, whether it's grabbing a coffee, it's just like, execs typically don't do that.
Yeah. Except Elon who plays Diablo. Who's arguably the busiest guy in the world. So kudos to SpaceX. The other thing of note, which came out yesterday, so I just added this little bullet point, is SpaceX also secured a $733 million contract from the U.S. Space Force. I was laughing at that name. The U.S. Space Force under the National Security Space Launch Phase 3 program. And so basically they're being contracted through the government to launch a bunch of things related to security. So that's the satellites and other things that are going to be watching over us.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So getting the money as well as spending the money.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one then. Instagram Meta. I'm curious what this is about.
Yeah. So, I mean, still big tech being shaken up. Apparently, Meta had pretty significant layoffs across like WhatsApp, Instagram, Threads, Reality Labs. It's kind of surprising, some of these, because, Mark has talked about them. I mean, they've been kind of leading Meta, right? Like Instagram is probably one of their biggest apps. Threads is his upcoming Twitter, whatever, X competitor. Like WhatsApp is like, they've really focused on that as like a way to communicate. But anyways, so some pretty massive layoffs. But what really kind of set off the tech world is a very small group of people were laid off because they were found to have been abusing these $25 meal credits that they get. So what it is so in very small offices where Meta doesn't have like a cafeteria, right? They allow these employees to basically order from Grubhub, $25 for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they get these meal credits they can use on Grubhub. So apparently, some of these people were using it to buy toothpaste or buy like things that they needed to use and not food. And so it was just it was a little bit shocking that Meta chose these specific people for abuse of these credits and were basically just fired on it. So that started a whole entire debate in the tech world, at least, on the blind world and, in the different articles and, some people that, are in this world. It's like, what? Really? Of all the things to fire somebody, it's on these $25 meal credits. And the debate is like, it's unethical. Like, it's for meals. You shouldn't be using it for like toothpaste or daily goods, etc. But like, it's like you're making $400,000 a year. Why? Just to save $25. I think people miss the point of it. Like, I don't know. It's like, so my thoughts being in big tech is like, it's no different than somebody grabbing an extra can of soda before they leave the office, right? Or picking up like a lunch to go for later in the day, or, taking a couple pens, using the company, printing services to print like personal documents and stuff. It was kind of funny how some people were like railing, like, oh, I saw this. It was like, yeah, like, oh, they're so unethical. Like, I would never trust them with, to do like detailed work and stuff, knowing that they would try and take advantage of $25 credit. It's like so weird. It's like so easy to rail, but like if you day to day, all big tech workers are like that. It's like,
Yeah.
It was just weird that they chose like this particular policy. And when you look at the details, it seems only people in Los Angeles were affected by this, which is also kind of weird.
Yeah.
People have been saying Meta wants to close their LA office, and so it makes it a bit sus. You know what I mean? Was there any...
I haven't been following it, but is there any proof that it was because of this particular issue?
Well, I mean, apparently, like Meta was like, yeah, these particular people have shown consistent misuse through their investigation. And like, still, even if they say that, it's just like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why I feel like it's probably deeper than what the media and what the employees are actually making of it. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, to get fired over that, yeah, it does feel comical, and so I feel like it's deeper. One thing I do know is there are layoffs going on at Meta, wider layoffs. So this is probably part of the bigger layoff strategy right now, and perhaps this story that's making the headlines is just making the headlines because of how it's being narrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I think it's probably more deeper. But yeah, if it is true, then that's pretty sad. Yeah. Abuse of benefits always comes into play, and I wouldn't even characterize it as abuse or misuse. I think I would characterize it as being opportunistic.
Yeah.
I've heard in the past of people, using like their work from home stipend during the COVID era to buy something on Amazon and then return it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And it's like, because in tech, if you're a remote worker, typically at these companies, you have like say $600 to $1,000 work from home benefit. You can buy anything with that as long as it's an office thing.
I know people point out that, like, oh, these guys, everybody in tech is making, hundreds and hundreds of $1,000. Why are, you guys cheapskating on like $10, $25? I think the larger point is when we or people in tech are evaluating these roles, right? We're not just looking at the salary, but like the overall benefits, right? As part of the compensation. And so
performance plays into that too. Like, I'm sure performance.
And so like in my mind also, like these $25 credits are kind of like a given, right? You're like, these folks don't have those services available in like their home office. right? And so it's like use it or lose it. And so I'm sure some of them are thinking, well, if I have extra food left over from dinner last night, I'm going to eat that for lunch. And so, but I don't want that $25 credit to go to waste. So I'll spend it on something I am actually going to use.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I can see like that mental sort of like model happening. Right. And so normal. And then so for me, it's like, I think what you said, right? There's something else going on. It's like, maybe it is true that they're trying to get rid of this LA office. And this is one way to immediately cut people from it, right? Because I can't imagine it is only people in LA doing this.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's really suspect. But anyways, it's a weird policy, and whether that is a clamp down, because there's so many other things that tech folks do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so are you badging into the correct office? If you're not, which a lot of people are doing right now too, right? They're like not in their home office, but they're badging into other offices to kind of get their credits for it.
Oh yeah, I've seen that at Amazon here.
Yeah.
Or people will just, if they live close by, they'll just go there, badge, and go back out.
Yeah, exactly. Or, it's like,
Yeah.
do you like grab too many coffees?
Well, I think for me, the hurdle taking advantage of benefits and reimbursements thing is,
Really?
yeah, like you said, it's like whatever is common. To me, what this news is, man, layoffs are still happening. And even at Meta, who's at, getting to all-time highs here, and made pretty great news with their last event a couple of weeks ago with the whole Quest and glasses and Orion unveil. Why are we still laying off all these people? It's kind of crazy.
And like Amazon, just a side note, apparently Amazon said, if you guys don't like RTO, quit.
Yeah.
So that again plays into the part of where big tech seems to be doing whatever they can to get people to either quit, right, or they'll just lay off outright. Also,
so it's a reset, if you will. All right, that was a good start. Let's move on. So related to tech, a company that we haven't talked too much about is Netflix. Netflix is always in the center of attention because they're the first tech company to report earnings. And so whenever earnings season comes along, everyone is waiting for Netflix's earning to happen to see. They set the tone for how tech stocks are expected to perform because they are the first tech company to always report their earnings.
Yeah.
But this time around, they actually had good reception to their earnings, mostly because they showed strong subscriber additions and their forecast wasn't bad. So a year and a half ago, I think this is when, I remember this is when COVID happened. A lot of these companies had record subscribers, but then there was a tapering to growth because at some point people just stopped. Like at some point, everyone who was going to subscribe had subscribed.
Yeah.
And so Netflix, I remember Netflix crashing a bit because they reported like a negative subscriber growth.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, Netflix is going to die. Blah, blah, blah.
I know. I was like, I remember that time and I was just looking. I was like, like it crashed to like almost like around 200. And I was like, oh wow, I don't think Netflix. I should really buy Netflix at 200. And of course, I didn't. And it is literally up at all times high. It's I think up almost 300% at those lows. Like,
the market is so reactive. For Q3, they topped estimates for quarterly subscriber additions by more than 1 million and projected higher signups for the last 3 months of the year.
Yeah.
And most of that's going to be driven because of Squid Game's season 2. The company's profit and revenue beat estimates and everything's going good. So, the market itself, the S&P is up at all-time high as well.
Yeah.
Everything is rallying right now, with the exception of Tesla.
Yeah. Well, Tesla did its own thing last week. But so Netflix is, it's an interesting spot. Definitely, I guess, what you consider a market leader is in like 100-ish countries now. I think what a lot of people have been talking about or banking on too for future growth is their ad tier revenue. which apparently is only in like 10-ish countries. And so people are also banking on that long term, which makes sense, which kind of is now making me tempted, but we'll see. We'll see if there's a pullback, not financial advice, but all-time highs, there's always a small pullback. So we'll see if it keeps pushing higher like Meta did.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Returns well for the rest of earnings next week.
What's that?
It good vibes going into earnings next week also. So we are upcoming on the next couple of weeks. So we'll see how everybody does.
Yeah. Two kind of points I wanted to make related to this news is, well, the first is what you were just kind of ending that with was around their ad tier and just how, think about how companies grow. It's just the name of the game is always how to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so Netflix introduces an ad tier, which means they can increase the price of their not ad tier.
Yep.
You've got Amazon Prime, who's increased. I remember, I think it was like last year or the year before, where it was like the first time they ever increased Amazon Prime, and then they did it another time after that.
Yep.
It's like $119, I think, now for Amazon Prime. And
I
believe Amazon Prime started at around $89, maybe.
Yeah, I remember it's like, I was about to say, it was like $69, $79, something around there. It was like when I initially signed up.
Disney just announced that they're increasing the prices of their Fastlane to $400.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a Fastlane pass, when they just increased it to, I think, like $200 or maybe $299 earlier this year.
Yeah. What's funny about this ad tier to me is it basically turns Netflix into cable TV.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So, yeah, that is the name of the game for companies, but it just hurts us as the consumer, right?
There's less incentive to worry about price elasticity. I guess if you really get into it, it's like, well, if they don't want to pay that much, then they can always drop to watch the free one, but watch ads, which I don't know. I still don't know how I feel like Hulu. I don't watch Hulu anymore. I don't pay for it, but I'm on their ad tier. And dude, man, there's it's like 3-4 ads at a time that take up like 5-10 minutes. I'm like, I'm not.
Hulu sucks.
So I never watch Hulu.
It's basically like watching cable TV is what Hulu is.
Yeah. And YouTube is not, I guess YouTube might be the closest proxy. It's not that much better either.
I pay for YouTube Premium now. I wanted to try its background playing. Because, like with YouTube, if you pay for Premium,
on the mobile app.
and you lock your phone, then it will shut off.
Yeah.
But if you pay for it, then it just continues streaming. So that's like, YouTube is like competing with Spotify in that regard.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like I'm starting to listen to YouTube more than I listen to Spotify.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Especially for podcasts. And then the other reason why is because I usually watch YouTube on my iPad when I'm doing the dishes. So every time they be an ad, I have to Wi-Fi.
And skip. Yes, exactly. Yes. That's so, yeah.
But I think he made a comment around cable. And all these streaming networks are essentially just creating another cable atmosphere, except globally relevant. Yeah. And I think like once you add it all up, I have probably 6 or so, maybe 7 streaming providers that I pay for. Once you add it all up, it's just the same cost as cable. Yeah. I think the pro though is that you can turn it off at any time and turn it back on. So
see, man, it's going to be all about subscriptions, right? It's actually not a great thing.
Where I was going with this thread is, like the presidential election, everything is a lot of the message around the middle class. But as we were talking about this, I'm like, it's tech companies like this who are actually pushing down the middle class because they're catering to the wealthy by shacking up these prices like Disney.
Yeah.
It's like no middle class person is going to pay $400 to go to a fast lane. They're just going to suffer in the line, right? Whereas someone like the Kardashians who go to Disney all the time, are going to be like buying 20 of these fast lane passes for everyone who's with them. So that's the same thing that kind of pissed me off around Delta, when Delta changed their loyalty program to
Mhm.
basically say the only way you can have loyalty status is if you use our credit card. But in order to actually get the first tier, which is
Sure.
silver, you have to spend like $50,000 in a year on their credit card.
Oh, really? Wow. I haven't kept up on
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, this happened early last year because I've been loyal to Delta. I've been a medallion member since I was at Verbo years.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to lose it because there's no way I'm spending $50,000 on their credit card.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm at Delta Flyer too. Well, up until I was in San Francisco, which Delta doesn't really operate there. But anyways, okay, that sucks.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like Delta.
But that's another example, like catering to the ultra wealthy. All right, well, we will talk again next week for more interesting stories. Earning week this week, so
Always fun.
some juicy things going on, and then I think we're 2 weeks away from the election.
2 weeks. I'm sure people are cringing now. The gambling stats aren't looking great.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right.